Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode where we're going to be discussing the disability application process.
You're watching Your Disability Lawyers with David Share and Samantha Share. Contact Share Lawyers today for a free consultation. There are no fees unless you win your case.
Samantha and I will be talking about the legal process and the logistics involved in the formality of fulfilling and completing an application. But before we get to that, we're going to hand it over to our colleague Adam, who's going to talk more about the emotional side of making that application and what you may be going through during that process.
Absolutely. Thanks, David. I think there's certainly a lot of emotions as far as the application process is concerned. I think one thing that, from my experience from speaking to clients is that they're really surprised at how overwhelming the disability benefits application can be. One would think that when somebody's suffering from a disability and they can't work, that the insurance company might make it easy to apply for disability benefits. But so much my experience from speaking to clients is that that's not the case. They feel that the forms are very overwhelming. They feel that there's a lot to complete. And the other side of the coin is that as well as completing an application for yourself, you also have to have support from your doctor, which can often involve making an appointment with your doctor, going through the forms. It might take more than one appointment, and that can all really add to the stress and strain associated with the disability benefits process. There's absolutely a fear that you might fill out the forms wrong, and I think that so many people are concerned that they will say the wrong thing on those forms. And people can look at this in different ways. Some people say, well, I don't want to include too much detail because I don't want to give the insurance company too much. Other people will look at it and say, I don't want to give them too much information in case they decide to deny the disability benefits.
Thank you for that insight, Adam. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the legal logistical side of applying for disability benefits. The first thing I'd like to address is, what's the right time to be making that application or be going off of work? And I would say the best practice would be if you're suffering from some medical conditions that are preventing you from being able to perform properly at work, you're very stressed out, you're having performance issues, you're calling in sick a lot, you should talk to your doctor about whether your doctor thinks you should be going off of work, because ultimately you do need your doctor's support in your application for disability benefits. They're the ones who will be having to fill out the attending physician statement. You can't just apply for disability benefits without having a doctor filling out their part of the forms. So first thing I would say is talk to your doctor, get your doctor to support the idea that you should not be working. And then with the support of your doctor, you can then start thinking about telling your work, your human resources department or your boss that you're unable to come back to work. And initially it's usually a sick note or a few days off that then turns into an application for short-term disability benefits if they're available to you. If you don't have short-term disability benefits, then typically your HR department should be advising you that you're taking a sick leave, please provide us with your doctor's note, and then to be applying for EI sick benefits, which is through Service Canada. If you're still off of work and you're not able to return to work after the waiting period for long-term disability benefits, and you've been in receipt of EI sickness benefits, then you would be looking to make an application for long-term disability benefits. If you did have short-term disability benefits through your work and the insurance company is the same for both the short-term and long-term, then typically it would just transition to long-term disability after the 3 to 6 months of short-term. If it's a different insurance company or the short-term disability was funded by your employer, and then the long-term is funded by an insurance company, you may need to be making a separate application at that time, and that you would also need to have the support of your doctor for that.
That's a lot to take on board that Samantha mentioned there. And I guess for the layperson that's dealing with this, the question you might be thinking about is how much information should I be including in these forms? Obviously accuracy and truthfulness is important because at some point you're going to be asked to potentially defend these statements that you put in the form. So it's important to answer them completely, but it often feels like there's not enough space to do that. So err on the side of providing accurate information, but not going overboard in terms of telling your entire life story. The insurance company, by default, I hate to say this, but by default, they're looking at these and scrutinizing them with a view to, is there some way we can deny this claim? Another thing that you should definitely consider when trying to fill out your application is to get help. You've already reached out to your doctor to get them to fill out their form, but you have a form that you need to complete as well. And you're not feeling well, you're not at your best, you may not be thinking things through as you should. So if you have a trusted family member or friend that can assist you in going through the form, I would encourage you to do that. You can contact us or a lawyer to assist you, but there's usually a cost associated with that, so I would not encourage you to do that, as it might be too expensive for you at this point. As long as you're answering the questions truthfully and as accurately as you can, you should be okay. It's all a bit overwhelming, we understand that, but it is important to get through it. So if you're struggling to get the forms completed, you can't get approved unless you get those forms into the insurance company to review. So get some help in doing that if you can. So now you've completed your application and you're waiting for the insurance company to get back to you, and hopefully you get approved. And what happens when you get approved? Well, there's a lot that goes into that. It's not as simple as I'm getting my money and now I don't have to do anything else. And I'm going to turn that over to Adam to talk to you about the emotions that go along with getting approved for benefits.
Thanks, David. I do speak to clients who've been approved for disability benefits, and I guess the natural reaction is that's great news, and indeed a lot of clients tell me that they're very pleased about that, and they feel very fortunate and lucky. Of course, the reality of the situation is that being approved for long-term disability benefits is not an indefinite approval. You still have to prove to the insurance company on an ongoing basis that you remain disabled and that you can't work. And therefore, while being on claim, i.e. having been approved for disability benefits, you're still having to update the case manager, provide them with letters from your doctors, provide them with ongoing information about the symptoms you're experiencing and the issues that causes you with functioning on quite a regular basis, and that can add to the stress and strain of everything that a client is dealing with, in addition to the symptoms.
So once you get that approval letter from your insurance company, you're probably going to breathe a bit of a sigh of relief. You're going to say, okay, great, now I'm going to get my benefits every month. And likely you will get your benefits every month for a period of time, if your benefits were approved. But you should be cautious, because there's a chance that the insurance company could cut off or terminate your benefits at any time. And there's a few things that I would be looking out for. One is that they will periodically check in with you to ask you for updated medical information. They may send forms to your doctor to fill out or ask for updated clinical notes and records from your doctor. So if you know that they've sent out that form or letter to your doctor, you should mention it to your doctor and say, well, can you please make sure that you send back the information that my insurance company asked for? Because We all know that doctors are busy. They may not read everything that comes over their desk. And if it gets missed and the insurance company does not get the updated medical information in a timely manner, that could be something that they use to terminate your benefits. Another thing is to think about your treatment and make sure that you're listening to your doctor's advice and trying to get appropriate treatment for your medical condition. So whether that's taking the medication, whether that's following up to get a specialist appointment, whether it is seeing a therapist or a counselor if that's available to you, I would explore all those options, because another reason that insurance companies could terminate you is because you're not getting appropriate treatment for your medical condition. Another thing I should mention is surveillance. So and the minute that you put in a claim, the insurance company has a right to surveil you, which essentially means to investigate you, whether that's doing an internet search, looking at your social media presence, or even hiring a private investigator to follow you around for a couple of days. And all of that information or evidence is another way that if the insurance company sees you doing something that you didn't tell them about, or that they think is an indication that you could work, it's another way that they could terminate your benefits. So those are all things you should be looking out for, because it's not just as simple as them, oh yes, every month they're going to pay me and I don't have to worry about it ever again. Another common time that insurance companies look to terminate or cut people off of their benefits is around the 2-year mark. And we call that the change of definition, which means there's a change of definition under most insurance policies of the definition of disability. So for the first 2 years, they're looking at whether you're disabled from doing your own job. And after 2 years, what they're looking at is whether you're disabled from doing any job. And most policies are designed with that definition change essentially to give the insurance companies a way out or a reason to not have to continue to pay you. So around that time, or even in the year prior to the change of definition, we see it sometimes even happening almost a year before, insurance companies start doing other things. They might send you for an independent medical evaluation to see their own doctor or speak to their own doctor, to then essentially that doctor is hired to write a report about you and how you're doing and your functionality. And oftentimes those reports are not favorable to you and can be used as a reason to terminate you. Another thing we see is they do something called a transferable skills analysis. They might try and send you to an occupational therapist or a rehab professional to try and push you back to work. There's all sorts of tactics that would take way longer than this show to tell you all about all those things. But all of the things I've mentioned are things you should be on the lookout for, and be cautious. Try to provide the information they're asking for, because you want to avoid being terminated if you can, or at least hope that they're going to keep on paying you for as long as possible.
I just wanted to add sort of a bit of an insider tip about some of the things that Samantha talked about getting surveillance. And there's a bit of a way that the insurance company sets you up that you might not be aware of. They send you this, what seems like a pretty innocent document asking you to talk about your activities of daily living and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And some clients fall into the trap of saying, well, I'm on disability, I better say I'm very disabled. So I'm going to put in here, what do I do in a usual day? I stay at home and I'm in bed most of the time. Well, that's a setup, and it's used when they do an independent medical or when they get a private investigator to conduct surveillance. They're going to then send somebody out to say, oh, look, there she is going to Costco and loading a carton of water into the back of her car. And she said in her questionnaire that she is at home every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and in bed. So be wary of those requests that seem innocent, and be mindful of the fact that they are watching you. Not every minute of every day, but they're looking for ways to trip you up if they can. And that's just a little tip that you may not think about when you get one of those forms to complete. So we've talked about approval and being on claim and all of the pitfalls and ins and outs of that. But what happens when your claim is denied, either when you've made an initial application or when you've got benefits for a few months? The feelings you're going to have, the emotions and reaction to that are going to be pretty difficult to take. And I'm going to have Adam, once again, talk about the emotional side of getting a correspondence, an email, or a letter from the insurance company saying, we're not going to pay you either at all, or we're stopping payments to you now.
A lot of people we're speaking to are indeed those people who have been denied disability benefits, and quite understandably, when I speak to them, they're going through a range of emotions. And I think the first one is shock. You know, these are genuine people who have become disabled and cannot work. They have often fully paid or partially paid the policy premiums for a long period of time, and they expect that support to be there from the insurance company when they need it. In fact, it turns out that in a lot of cases that isn't what happened, and they get denied. So I think that initial reaction is shock, and I totally understand that. And some people need time to digest that and to deal with that before they contact us. But what naturally follows is that people feel angry, frustrated, and also very anxious and stressed, because obviously, if you're being denied for disability benefits, you are being told that you're not going to be receiving a regular monthly income, which you thought you would have the benefit of while you remain disabled. So they're very concerned about finances, they're very concerned about the future. But the good thing is that we are experienced in dealing with denials and terminations of disability benefits. So the important thing is to contact us so that we can guide you, we can support you, we can give you the right advice.
So when your claim for long-term disability benefits is denied, you're going to be probably pretty upset, and Adam's talked about that. But what can you do about it, and why? What are the reasons that the insurance company decided to deny or terminate your benefits? Well, there's lots of reasons. I'd say the most common one that we see is that you do not meet the definition of disability under the policy. And that's pretty broad, and it can mean a lot of different things. But what I often say to many clients is, just because you have a medical condition, so the insurance company acknowledges that you have a medical condition, that you have some struggles, but they don't think that that medical condition is bad enough that it prevents you from working, whether that's in your own job or in any occupation, depending on the timing of the termination or denial of benefits. So, they're not saying, well, we don't believe you, we don't think you have any medical condition. They're just talking about, what symptoms you have and the severity of those symptoms. And maybe if you've shown some improvement over the year that you've been on claim, they're going to say, well, you've gotten better, so we think you're ready to go back to work. So that's the most common reason for denial, but there's lots of other reasons that the insurance company could give. That would include, there's a pre-existing condition, that there's a coverage issue, that you didn't have coverage, that there's some sort of issue with a late filing, or you were late in filing your application. We've got surveillance and we think that this is the reason that you are able to work. There's lots and lots of things that they could give, but those are some of the most common reasons that people get denied. So David, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what somebody should do when they get denied their benefits.
Whatever the reason is for the denial, the best thing you can do when you get that is get in touch with a lawyer that's experienced in disability claims, to discuss your options, to review the reasons, to sort of dig into whether there is a way to challenge that decision. because facing that on your own, even if you may ultimately decide to submit an appeal on your own, at least get some additional feedback from a law firm about what your options are. Because as daunting as filling out the application forms are, once they tell you no, trying to get them to change that decision or pursuing your entitlement to benefits is even more daunting. And you should not be taking on that fight alone. You should definitely reach out and speak to a law firm. Well, that's all we have time for today. There's more that we could tell you about all of this. And if there's questions we didn't answer today, please reach out to us. But the important thing is to know that if you're facing this situation, that there's help available to you. And we look forward to hearing from you if we can be of service to you. Thanks so much for watching our show today.
You've been watching Your Disability Lawyers with David Share and Samantha Share. Contact Share Lawyers today for a free consultation and put our 35 years of experience to work for you. There are no fees unless you win your case.